All right, I'm just getting to it in this video. No big formal introductions. I want to thank the people, however, who gave earnestly over on PayPal today. It really helps. We got a hurricane bearing down on where I live, although it's hopefully going to go to the north a lot. So I'm hoping I don't lose power, because I had that happen 2 years ago, and I had no power for 2 weeks, and it was pretty rough. This article, I am losing faith in our democracy, the way it's being practiced. Now, again, we need to develop a workaround. We need to create a third movement. And that third movement has got to allow a candidate like Tulsi Gabbard to just walk onto the conveyor belt and go. We need to get outside of these normative or these typical things that we've always done when it comes to electing a president. This is not a coronation. It's not a pageant. This should be for serious-minded people who want information on the candidate that will best serve their interests. With that said, this is some of the most outrageous stuff. I know the Bernie people from 2016 have their own stories, but I can't imagine a more just mind-boggling story where I wanted to go grab the duct tape and the bubble wrap and just start securing, various things that were going to blow off. My head, my arms. I don't know. This is crazy. If I didn't have some kind of a sense of humor, I don't know, I would lose it, because I'm looking at our future. Kids, grandchildren, the planet. Okay? And nobody seems to care. Everybody is just in the now. We're in the now, and we've got our video games going, and we've got our rampant consumerism going, and that's what's going to sustain us forever. Okay. So, let me go and read this story. New Hampshire pollster, this comes from Citizen Source. You notice there aren't ads popping up all over the place. Typically, I've got to, get rid of them with the mouse here, but in this case, I am just going to read. Before debates, dark money is stifling debate within the Democratic Party. Dark money. Great. And of course, a picture of our heroine, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, by the way, won both DNC debates. She won them both. Okay? You can't argue. It's hard to argue. It's no secret that the Democratic establishment fears Tulsi Gabbard. It's also no secret that they are perfectly willing to pull the necessary strings to determine the outcome of an election. Many now are sounding the alarms on the DNC's methods of who gets airtime during the 2020 debates. All right. I've already read this, so I know it's coming. In an exclusive comment to Citizen Source, the University of New Hampshire Survey Center, one of the only DNC-approved pollsters in New Hampshire, due to the fact that they are partners with CNN, explained why they wouldn't be conducting a poll this month in the battleground state. I'm reading this with a big question mark over it. What? So, we're not going to do a poll before the debate. CNN is not going to pay these people to do the poll. Here it is. Andrew E. Smith responds. The UNH Survey Center is funded by grants and contracts. We have contracted with CNN during this primary cycle, as we have since 2000. Our polling schedule is determined by CNN and their polling budget. So, let's just summarize here. This is pretty easy. CNN funds the poll. CNN not giving them the funding for the poll. you would normally have a poll prior to the debate. Mr. Smith, just a few days before, told a Tulsi Gabbard supporter that they would be happy to conduct a poll if someone was willing to pay the $50,000 cost. A cost that CNN usually covers. Of course, even if a third party provided the funding, the poll wouldn't count, even if it had the same methodology, simply because it wasn't funded by CNN or another DNC-approved media organization. Let me stop here for a moment. The fact that the DNC relies on a fake news organization. I don't care if you think Trump is right or wrong and how he says it. The DNC and CNN partnering here, that's collusion. You want real collusion? There it is. Collusion. Please don't do a poll. Tulsi did way too good. She did way too well in those two debates. So let's just tamp down on the polling. And we might see Bernie spiking. I'm sure they're fine with Elizabeth Warren doing well. And my guess is, though, in New Hampshire, you would probably see it like this. You'd see Bernie, Biden, and then Warren. Probably. And you'd probably see Tulsi Gabbard at like 5%. Seriously, I think she'd be at 5%. And that's more than enough. That would be double what she needs, more than double. So, why is CNN, a company that has previously been caught colluding, there's that word again, with the DNC, to ask predetermined questions to then candidate Hillary Clinton? See, why do so many people have short memories when it comes to CNN and to what what they're all about? Is it because they hate Trump so much that they want CNN to be able to go after Trump and base their entire business model on attacking Trump all day? Because that's not helping the country, right? Whether you like Trump or not. And there are people who've already told me on Twitter, and it's discouraging, that if it's not Tulsi or Bernie or someone truly progressive, and this is weird because people see things differently now. That's why I'd consider the Green Party. Because again, there's a bunch of stuff I don't agree with. Open borders? Nope. You need to document people. You need to have a system of immigration that is, I guess, legitimate. But you can't just have open borders. Okay? You can't do it. You wouldn't do it on your own property. You wouldn't leave your front door open. You just wouldn't do it. You don't know who's going to come in. But I'm still willing to consider the Green Party because of their anti-war stance, and it's very clear, and their anti-corruption stance, and I can go on. There's about maybe 70 or 80% of their platform that I'll just nod my head to. And there's 20% of tribalism and identity politics. But the big ticket items, as I like to say, are being addressed. Anyway. So, how are the other DNC-approved pollsters deciding when to release them? Interestingly enough, Tulsi Gabbard routinely polls well above 2% in New Hampshire, just behind Pete Buttigieg, or however you want to say his name, polling in 6th place at an average of 3.3%. Now imagine Tulsi Gabbard on the stage with 5 other candidates. What she could do, she could laser focus on, well, I think Elizabeth Warren probably would be her next target. In fact, Tulsi is polling above Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro, Cory Booker, all candidates that will be on the next debate stage. Moreover, she is polling higher than billionaire Tom Steyer, who is pouring millions of dollars into battleground states. Showing again that money don't buy you love. Nope. Rep. Tulsi Gabbard on the heels of a 2-week-long military deployment. You know, whether I think I've come close to saying this, the military deployment thing didn't help Tulsi Gabbard. In the real world, where people care about important things, it would have actually helped her. But in the political realm, it doesn't help her. She literally put her campaign on hold, and the media largely ignored. Again, they didn't look at it as something great. She was greeted back to the States with the news that she wouldn't be participating in the next Democratic presidential debate. She didn't receive more than 2% since the last debate in 4 DNC approved, air quotes, polls. Tulsi's campaign, while still continuing to reach out to voters to share the candidate's message, released a statement addressing the lack of transparency from the DNC. Okay, this stuff you can read comes from Michael Tracy, who did a great job covering this. Despite the campaign's repeated calls for transparency from the DNC in their poll-approved process, there has been relative silence from the organization. And you wonder why people are concerned about democracy, just plain old democracy, like my vote matters, my voice matters. And by the way, I think it's ridiculous that we're basing a candidate's inclusion. It's ridiculous. A candidate being included because of some arbitrary poll somewhere. Just polling in general, I think, needs to go away. It needs to go away. It should be when the votes are cast, that is a poll. If you don't think you're doing well in a campaign, then you drop out. If your voice isn't being heard, then you drop out. You know what I mean? If you're doing internal studies and polling and so forth, and you don't think you should continue, then you should drop out. But if you want to persevere to the end, moments like this shouldn't be used to gaslight everybody in the country to think that you're toast, because that's what this is doing. I know Tulsi Gabbard supporters who are very down and out today. I'm kind of one of them. But, I have some hope that people are going to make the next leap and go somewhere, and it's got to be probably a third way. I keep saying this, but you got to do something. Gabbard, who stepped down from her position as vice chair of the DNC in 2016 over concerns that Hillary Clinton's campaign was unfairly rigging the primary. I told you this was payback time. It's payback time. Here it comes. Oh, you're running for president? That's funny, because you're not going to get very far. Oh, and we've got a primary challenger heading your way too, Tulsi Gabbard. Seriously, they do. All of these things, this is what happens when you go up against the machine. And you don't think that the Clintons aren't pulling some strings? This whole march, they're not going to support Bernie Sanders for president, but they will support Elizabeth Warren. And that should scare all of the people who think Elizabeth Warren is a progressive, okay? Or whatever people think she is. Her strong stances against the military-industrial complex and opposition to regime change wars, while advocating for an America First foreign policy that promotes peace, is unsurprisingly not popular in Washington. Citizen Source has reached out to similar early state-approved polling organizations, but we have yet to receive any responses. Jake Mercier is a filmmaker, writer, and founding editor-in-chief of Citizen Source. This is just... I'm really, and I'm usually very talkative, but I'm at a total loss here. The best candidate in my lifetime, and you can come up with your own superlatives, but again, I need to stress this. We cannot just lay down again. For all you people that voted for Bernie in 2016, some of you should have said, you know what, not Bernie again. Bernie Look, Bernie had a movement, and he still has one. If he woke up tomorrow morning and said, you know what? Because of this, I'm done with the Democratic Party. Let Warren and Trump or Warren and Biden fight it out among the great unwashed. And I mean that with all love and sincerity. Let them duke it out. And then we've got this other candidate, which what you have to do is lawyer up and get on ballots in all 50 states. Green Party, whoever you are out there who are trying to do something, you got to get on the ballot in all 50 states. And you know what? I would be willing to chip in some money to do that, to get candidates on the ballots of all 50 states. And we need this. We need it now. This is rigged. They're not going to conduct a primary or a poll, rather, unless they get paid. All right? So this organization gets paid by CNN. CNN is working hand in hand with the Democratic Party. And we've known this since 2016. These news organizations that are incestuous with the Democratic Party cannot be trusted. Because even if you like what they're doing, this is real collusion here. This isn't fake Russian hoaxing. And anybody who sits around and just sits on their hands and doesn't see that our democracy is being stolen. And I'm a guy, again, former very conservative guy, former Trump person, has decided that the whole thing is a mess. By the way, if you're fiscally conservative and you're supporting Donald Trump, you have cognitive dissonance. His military budgets, plus the fact that he hasn't really curtailed spending, he just spends the money on different things. If you're fiscally responsible, you'd be voting for Tulsi Gabbard, because Tulsi wants to trim back the military-industrial complex. Look, what are we spending money on? Shouldn't we be spending money on the people who truly need it in this country? Or should we continue to base our economy on the back of a military that's already too big? And to keep that model snowballing, there's no end in sight to that. The Green Party wants to go from like almost $1 trillion in spending each year on the war machine to $250 billion, which would still be a lot, but it wouldn't be compared to what we've been doing. And it would still keep everything viable, and it would keep us safe, and we'd have a lot of people in high places, bureaucrats, probably not going to work anymore, which would be fine with me. And you might have a few less homeless encampments in these large cities. You might have a change in the way we deal with the opioid crisis. I could go on and on about all the different aspects of our economy that would benefit. But it takes a nuanced point of view to even understand that. Nuanced understanding, I guess. I mean, what I'd like to see happen now is that the coalition of people, and by the way, you Bernie people are next. You Bernie people are next. Bernie is going to look good in some polls, especially if people start to say, well, Tulsi's not in anymore, so I got to go over to Bernie. You wait. All that support that Biden is losing is all going to Elizabeth Warren. It's all going to Warren because she's the new candidate. She's the ordained one, chosen one. And all of the fresh, positive media coverage is going to go over to her. You're going to start to see news stories that look like The Onion reporting on how great Elizabeth Warren is. And then what are you going to do, Bernie people? What are you going to do? And then you still have these other candidates that are going to stay in there to siphon support. Pete Buttigieg, he's not going to leave. I mean, you're going to see this was all designed basically to make it more confusing, more difficult, and then people get tired. They basically get rope-a-doped out, and they don't want to deal with this anymore. we got to go a different way. I keep saying it over and over again. Every video I do, I'm just throwing my hands in the air. And I'm saying, okay, do you see how this is actually rigged? Do you see the proof that this is rigged? They won't pay for a poll because they don't want Tulsi to look good. Bottom line, they're not going to pay for a poll. So she's out because they won't do what they're supposed to do. And if someone else steps up, if we raised 50 grand, which we could easily, and say, hey, can you guys do a poll? No. Well, we can do a poll, but guess what? They're not going to count it because it wasn't DNC sanctioned. All right, people, I'm done. Thank you again for the support today over on PayPal. That was awesome. You can also donate monthly over on Patreon if that's easier for you to do. The one-time donations, though, are pretty awesome. And I just want to say how it made my day today. If you do any praying, just pray for the state of Florida. This is some crazy stuff. Has nothing to do with the atmosphere, obviously. We shouldn't attempt to save the planet at all. I know a lot of people are skeptical about this stuff, but these hurricanes all go from like 1 to 4 to 5 in just a day or two. It's crazy. The atmosphere is just juiced up, and you need a candidate that has a forward-looking vision for how we're going to deal with this. And you're going to get a lot of talk from Elizabeth Warren, but no action. Same with Trump, obviously. In fact, Trump is just going to deny the whole thing. All right. See you soon.